our podcast, you've joined us for our first Women's LifeLab, which was recorded live at Holy Rood Church in April 2026 at our Women's Breakfast. My name is Kathryn England. I'm here with a panel of brilliant women, as you can see. We want to talk today about abiding with God through all the seasons of life that we go through as women. And I'm looking out at a room full of women, almost 100 women, all different ages, all different stages of life. And I bet you that each one of you has a unique story. Your own story, your own journey with God. Many of you are Christians, some of you aren't, but each one of you has value and is so special. So I think in this room, with the journeys that we've walked, you already have a wealth of wisdom and experience to share. So my prayer is that today we feel encouraged to share some of that wisdom and experience with each other as we listen and talk and share together and build one another up. So how it's going to work is that we on the panel, we're going to introduce you to them in a minute. We're going to have a bit of a conversation, but also open that up for you to have time to talk around your tables so that it's not just us talking all the time. Does that sound good? I think so. So let me introduce us all. As I've said, I'm Kathryn England. I'm part of the team here in Crofton Parish, where my husband is the vicar. I'm a worship leader here. I'm also a licensed lay minister in the Diocese of Portsmouth. I've been involved in ministry life for a long time in churches up and down the country with different ages, with different and suburban churches and urban churches and very big churches and normal-sized churches. And that is a massive part of my life. But I'm also a business owner as a private piano tutor. So my life very much looks like that mix of ministry and also life in the community in my tutoring work. So that is me. You've already met Emma. This is Emma Sneddon on the end here. Say hi. You got a mic all of your own there. That's very good.
Hello.
Fantastic. Emma's part of our congregation and also runs the ministry to older people here in the parish, don't you? And many of you will know that because you're on her team and part of her work, and you've already seen how brilliantly Emma does that job. But you also have a role in Portsmouth Diocese, don't you? You coordinate the Anna chaplains. You've got about 60 of those, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Kathryn.
Yeah,
60 Anna chaplains, and Anna chaplaincy is presence and spiritual support, emotional support specifically to older people. And in the UK, fun fact for you, we've got nearly 500 Anna chaplains.
Wow. And 60 of them here.
60 of them in the diocese, so we are...
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're going to be helping us through the LifeLab a little bit, so we'll hear more from you later. So on our panel, at the end here, we have Rev Beth Yeandle. Beth is our associate vicar in Crofton Parish. Like me, has something of a portfolio career as well, because as well as your role here, you also have responsibilities in the safeguarding structure of the Church of England, don't you, both nationally and at a diocesan level. She's a very busy person, because you are also a magistrate.
I am, yes.
Where is that based? In Portsmouth?
In Portsmouth, yeah. So I run great big courts in Portsmouth. It's great fun.
So you do some sending people down?
Well, yes.
Wow.
Okay. Occasionally. I always threaten my son, but he takes no notice.
Beth and I are both in that kind of mixed time of life where we've got young adult children who are leaving home, but also not yet left home, but coming back to home, finding their feet.
Still expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, they're still expensive. Nobody told me it gets worse. Okay. So in the middle here, we've got Lexi Stares, also a member of our congregation. She's one of our worship leaders, which is a very significant ministry for you. You regard that as something very special, don't you? Yeah. But as well as balancing home and family life, your other role is assistant head teacher in a local secondary school. That's right.
So that's very busy. So I'm here representing the working mums with little ones. So, yeah.
And you've got a background in science, is that your thing?
Yes, I've got a chemistry degree, so I teach a little bit of science and then just look after lots of stuff at school. Teaching and learning, lots and lots of,
Responsible
lots
for
of
staff well-being?
Staff well-being,
all of that.
staff development, staff training. It's
very
all
good.
all
And
me,
finally, thank you, we have Lorna Bedford, also a member of our congregation here. You've had a mix of ministry and working life roles. Your husband was a United Reform minister, is that right?
Yep, that's right.
And you've also got experience as a school pastor.
A street pastor.
Street pastor.
Yeah.
I knew I would get those muddled up.
Drunk people and homeless. We'll never know those this morning, hopefully.
Yeah, in Newcastle and Canterbury.
Yep.
And you've coordinated that there before. So, yeah. So, and you've got grandchildren.
Yeah, I have grandchildren.
How old are your grandchildren?
They're a great invention.
That's good to know.
12 and 10.
12 and 10. Lovely. So we ought to go for coffee. It sounds like we had a very interesting...
They have attitude even at that age.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, gran, they say.
So that is our panel. So as I mentioned, we want to talk about abiding with God in the different seasons of life and all that we face. As women, what's it like going through life with God? You may not know, but you may be very experienced in it. And one of the things is, he is always the same, but we are not. We go through a lot, don't we? And I think as women, in all that we go through, what we need to know is that we're accepted just as we are. Yeah, we're held, we are treasured, we are known by God, and he is faithful and very, very patient with us. And the idea of talking about abiding with God came to us when Emma and Beth and I met a couple of months ago, and we were thinking about what should we talk about, and this came up, but it'd be great to kind of strip away, kind of sounds a bit churchy, abiding with God. And I'd love to strip that away and to talk about what that really means. So if you think about your life, maybe as it is now, maybe as it was at a particular time, those times when you really needed God, what we need then is an assurance of his faithfulness, knowing that we belong to him, that simple belonging to Jesus. And I think that that's the crux of what abiding is all about. Knowing that we belong to him, knowing that he's got us. I don't know, maybe it's just my personality, but I much prefer to think of just belonging to God rather than having to do a lot of things. Maybe that's me. And I want to learn better those spiritual disciplines, we call them, reading God's word, prayer, rest. But what I found is Jesus is not demanding. Jesus is not demanding. He just says, stay close to me in all of those things. If you read the Bible, you'll find it in John chapter 15. He says, abide in my love. Abide in my love.
I love the fact you said knowing and treasure, because you think of that treasure, something oh so special.
Yeah.
And that's something when we all need to feel, that knowing, being known, and the treasure. And what that is, that's something precious to... And it's interesting that it's just about, that's what he asks us to do. His invitation is to abide in his love. And he says that because he knows that's the place we're going to be most fruitful. That's the place where we're going to come into who we're supposed to be most. And maybe that's the place where we're going to find belonging more than anywhere else we might find it. Maybe we're not going to find it anywhere else in quite the same way. No matter what season that we're in, no matter our stage of life or our age, everything that we need can be found in Jesus. So Beth, we've talked about this a little while. I wonder if you agree, the idea that when we come to know Jesus, everything we need stems from that.
Yes. I mean, fundamentally, yes, I do agree. I think
it's a good job, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that is really. I mean, I'd be in trouble if I... No. But I think what that looks like for each of us is going to change over time and be although there'll be a lot of overlap, it will look subtly different. And that it's very easy, I think, as Christians to look at other Christians and think, well, I should be faithful like they are, that my faith should look like theirs. And if you look at some of the most faithful characters in the Bible, in the Old Testament, you look at people like Abraham and David and Moses and Elijah, they're the people that are held up as being the really faithful people, but it looks very different for each of them. So I think it's important that we remember the truth, the absolute underlying truth of that, but that we are all individuals too.
So has that looked different for you over the years? Has there been a time when it's been easier to feel that closeness to God?
Yeah, I think for us, obviously, the background, as most of you know, our background is that my husband is medical, so we married when he was halfway through medical school, so and then he went into early junior doctor years, which were 90 hours a week in the hospital. So for us, in those days, the underlying truth of abiding in the Lord was still absolutely there, but going to church on a Sunday really wasn't very much. And that was okay, because the Christian community for us just looked different in those days, and it was focused around our Christian friends that we walked with and did life with. That was our church more than Sunday mornings. Yeah,
friendship is actually really important in knowing that you belong to God, because he created that community. We belong to one another, don't we?
So it hasn't always looked like it does for us now, and that's okay. That's fine.
I think having time, the space to meet with other Christians is really key in finding that time and how everyone else abides with God and what that looks like. And I think that comes back to that. So sometimes actually you might not have that headspace or the Sunday morning available, but actually being able to catch up with a Christian friend over coffee, or being able to go to a home group, or just grabbing a half an hour walk after work with someone, actually that can give you the space.
It can, and sometimes finding people who are in similar walks to yourself, it really helps too, because you can feed off each other. It certainly has for us over the years.
I think it's finding that connection, whether it's, especially in the workplace, like for you guys, if you find someone else who thinks like you or whatever and is supportive.
Yes.
So.
And it really can be hard if there isn't anyone like that.
Yeah.
I've been there too.
So you can feel isolated like that, and I think also like when you're at home with young kids and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can remember thinking, well, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
David's going out and doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I'm here. And I used to walk 1 mile on a Sunday with my pram, so I could go from the one fellowship to another to connect with, and you just think, oh.
You find yourself manufacturing conversations with the checkout lady at Tesco, because she's the only person you've spoken to all day. Absolutely. At least other than a small baby. It can be very isolating.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's been a particular season of life or a place in your life, like work, or a particular place you've lived, where it has been easier than others to kind of know God's connection. I think for me, those student years were really quite powerful. I don't know if any one of you can resonate with that time where you leave home and you find a church. Not everybody does. Not everyone is a Christian when they're young, but I remember being a young Christian student and being surrounded by, we went to a very, very large church, and just, people of the same mind who encouraged me. I didn't really know what it meant to follow God until I was at that age. And then we kind of grew up together through our 20s with that kind of solid sense of, we belong to each other, but we belong to God because of that.
Yeah. And that was true for us too in the sort of the medical school days. But I think it's also true here. I think we're really blessed here to have such an amazing community here at Crofton, that we just do life together, don't we? And that's not always easy. And sometimes it plays out in really difficult ways. After Christmas, it wasn't easy. We had a difficult time to go through as a church community. But the fact that we were doing it together was very, very precious.
A lot of this morning, I think, is about being together. I mean, I've sat with people who, I'm thinking, one of my opening things is, would you come here? Because I can apologise, I don't know whether you do or whether you don't.
No.
It's a good opening line, But to get that togetherness and that connection, because we can be very busy people, but feel very isolated, can't we?
It's
Yes,
interesting
absolutely.
how for us there's that we connect being with each other with being with God. We connect the two things, but that's how he made us. I don't know if that's particular to women. I don't know if guys feel the same.
It's a good question to ask maybe about connections.
But it's interesting.
What's made you feel connected?
Yeah.
Whichever fellowship or, what makes you feel connected is...
But there's another element to this, which is our sense of maybe purpose and identity. I wonder whether you can resonate with, knowing who we are in God, knowing that we belong to God. Does that bolster your identity? Does it bolster a sense of purpose? Does it give you something that perhaps you might not have elsewhere? I don't know whether you have, like Lexi, whether you have that sense of calling to your workplace and you know that's God.
Yeah, definitely. I'll probably talk about it a bit later. I'm sure it will come up, but workplaces always, you have good times at work and you have bad times at work, and your role changes and what you do changes. And so for me, I've had sort of different roles, but the things that I've enjoyed at work have been about looking after the staff, whether that's just a peer, or as I've moved up, it's about looking after my team and looking after the wider team. And now staff wellbeing, and you can probably imagine staff wellbeing at a school is challenging. Looking after staff wellbeing at a school where you've got 150 teachers and 50 support staff is incredibly challenging, and you might only help one person in a day. But actually, I do think that is something that I feel really passionate about, and I know that God's driven me to be that person, and I try my best, and I am not always very good at it, but I think I try and make sure I'm an open and accessible sort of person to do that, and that's through.
I think my response to that is we need to be looking after you, because you're doing that 24/7 at work, and we don't expect that of you on a Sunday. We expect you to come and be, looked after and known and considered precious.
Thank you, panel. Thank you, panel. Thank you, ladies, for listening. You've listened to us for some time. Well done. So it's now over to you. Emma, what's next?
Okay. So on your tables, you've got these little cards which had the icebreakers, which we assume you really didn't need from the conversation that was flowing as we were eating our breakfast. But on the back of that card, we've got some questions. The first question that we're going to start looking at is, what season of life are you in? Having listened to the panel who are talking about having grandchildren, young children, working, doing lots of different jobs. Where are you? What season of life are you in right now? And perhaps you can look back and reflect on previous seasons and really resonate with some of the stuff that these lovely ladies have shared with us. So what's really struck you about what they've talked about? Do feel free to share with your table as much as you're comfortable to, and we will come back in about 8 minutes' time, and we'll carry on with the conversation.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're going to come back together. We're going to get real this time. I'm sure it's come up around your tables that as much as we're talking about belonging to God, life happens. There are some serious challenges that we go through that can spin us out, can't they, in our relationship with God. And I'm the kind of person who has been talking to God since they were this high, just all the time. I talk to God about everything all the time, until about 12 years ago, when something so difficult and shocking interrupted our lives as a family that I couldn't talk to God for about a month. And that month, that's a big deal for me. And it was such a big deal that I did actually time it, and it was a month. But I was so hurt and angry, like jaw clenched, back turned, could not look, spiritually speaking, in his direction because I was that hurt. But the funny thing is, he didn't go anywhere. I turned my back, but he was there. even in the midst of that really difficult situation. And what I love about Jesus' invitation to abide in my love is he doesn't say, come, abide in my love, leave your attitude at the door, please. He doesn't say that. He says, come and be with me. It doesn't matter what you're feeling and how hard this is for you. Just stay with me, remain in me. Lexi, you're a big believer in being real with God in these times in life, aren't you?
And real in anything, I think. Honest to an absolute fault. So, I think for me, in terms of how I speak to God, it would be the same as I would speak to anyone. I don't feel like I don't feel like I hold back. I just say exactly sort of how I'm feeling and what I'm feeling and why. I know I'm a very emotional person, so those emotions will come out.
Yeah.
And I think it's sometimes, it's in the moment when everything seems really tough is probably when I find I talk to God the most. At work, that's sometimes more often than others. We went through quite a tricky period a couple of years ago when the senior team went through a complete restructure. We all had to reapply for jobs, and sort of not necessarily quite the same jobs. And then our team of about 15 went down to 12, but people still had to be at work. So we knew we were working in a team where 3 people only had a few weeks left with us, and we have to just keep going. And that actually this is that in our team there were people who had a job, who were working with people who weren't going to have a job, and they were going to be doing the job that person wasn't going to be doing anymore.
Awkward,
so really awkward to be going in every morning, let me get through the day and help me. But
reminds me of that scripture that says, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. You just mentioned the emotions of others and the impact of others, but actually God is our rock.
So I think emotional awareness, being able to keep through the day and just saying, Lord, help me is for me.
The Lord wants our emotions. He honours that, I'm certain. I remember a moment, this is going to be a bit of a confession now. Back in April 2020, we all remember that, don't we? COVID was at its worst. My father died on the 5th of April. My mother had a serious stroke about 3 days later. They'd both lived their entire lives in churches, but the churches were locked and bolted. So there was no funeral, there was no access. We weren't supposed to come in here at all, but I have a key. And I remember one day just coming and sitting on these very steps here, and just sobbing my heart out because it all felt so unfair and unkind and wrong. And that's okay. That is okay. I mean, it wasn't okay. It was completely wrong and illegal and all that. But the Lord wants that, I think. I know.
I think losses at that time. My mother died exactly the same 2 days ago. It was 6 years on from. And I think we all carry loss from that time.
We do.
Things that were taken away from. I mean, and we all suffer daily loss, don't we? We said that when we were talking about that.
Yeah, and it's okay to be honest with the Lord about that.
Yeah. I think as women as well, there are often places in our lives where showing emotion is not really the done thing, is it? I remember being young and in the workplace for the first time, and that was a season of life that was really hard in business. I had a lot of male bosses who were like, we don't like the way you're doing this, and this. And part of that was just adjusting to being at work, finding it was probably a bit over emotional, but you learn to button down for whatever the reasons are. You learn to do that. But would you say, Lorna, that with God you don't have to do that? Would you say that He is a safe place where other places aren't? Have you found that?
I think He is that safe place because He is my bedrock. Can be yours. Not making an assumption here, but also He made us human, so we do question. And in times when it's been hard, I suppose some of the hard times for me, being a pastor's wife, is when we've had to move churches or move on. And that sense of loss, the relationship that you've built up, you're saying farewell to, and moving on from that. So the sense of loss, and is this right? And David wanting to make a move, is this right under God? And me thinking, I could just stay put, thanks very much. But, and then looking for the little signs, the children like the chairs rather than the pews. Okay, maybe this is where God wants us to come. But
Beth, you mentioned just then about emotions. God likes our emotions. And again, I'm just thinking about this all the time. It's because he made us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So of course we should, when we're thinking about our belonging in God, we should be including our emotional selves and really learning to accept this is the way I am. That God made me this way. Yeah. When he invites me into his presence, he's inviting me to be with him with all that I am.
And we see that played out in Jesus' life, don't we? He cried when his friend died, Lazarus died. Sure. When he met the widow of Nain, whose son had just died. The Bible tells us his heart went out to her. He was compassionate. He did show his emotion.
Remembering that we're made in his image. I'm made in God's image. It's a great reminder. Yeah. Because some days you think, oh, for goodness sake. Well, I don't know whether you're probably more perfect than me, but I certainly
Sorry. Lovely. Well, thank you, panel. So we are going to stop there and give you guys another chance to talk around your tables. Emma.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for being so candid with what you shared. Those difficult times of life are the times when we perhaps need to draw on God's mercy and grace and love, but actually they're the most challenging times to even want to ask for that sometimes. So on your tables again, looking at our smaller cards, have a think about how you, with your experience of how God has met with you in those difficult times, how would you encourage others through those difficult times of life? We've listened to just a tip of the iceberg of the challenges that we face in life, but in this room, you've all, I'm sure, faced difficulties. So as much as you feel comfortable, do share how you would encourage others in your walk of faith, in their walk of faith as well.
Okay, I'm going to bring us back again, interrupting your conversations. I wonder what you might have said around your tables. I think we're missing out, aren't we, panel? We're not hearing what everybody's saying. So you talked about, what was the question that you had, Emma, that time?
How would you encourage someone else?
How would you encourage someone in a different stage of life?
Different stage of life.
To you. It's funny when we start to ask that question about how we might encourage each other, it changes the way we think about ourselves, doesn't it? Because we're so hard on ourselves. If we would just listen to the words of encouragement that we're giving somebody else, that would make a huge difference, wouldn't it? When we've met as a panel, we spent some time thinking about some of those significant scriptures that we've had over the years that God has spoken when we've needed encouragement. And actually, when I met with Pam and Sue, who put together the prayer space at the back over there, one of the things that Sue identified was this particular hymn, wasn't it, that says, through all the changing scenes of life, in trouble and in joy. And it's just amazing how sometimes song words stick with us more than perhaps even scripture or other things like that. And I'm thinking of the old hymn writer that wrote that, through all the changing scenes of life. People have always known that life, whatever, is guaranteed to always change, but God stays the same. And these kind of things, these scriptures, these song words, got us thinking as a panel, there's always a promise. Through every season, every stage, God always has something for you. He always has a promise. There's always something that the Holy Spirit would want to drop into our hearts to strengthen us, to refocus us, to draw us nearer to him. And Lorna, as we talked, you mentioned Psalm 23, didn't you? It was the last verse, I think.
Yeah, Psalm 23, when I will dwell in your house, and that whole sense of dwelling and being there, not just visiting, and that whole sense of that was somewhere secure, I suppose. And then when we were thinking about song words as well, we were talking about abiding this morning. I was thinking the old song, Abide With Me, you know. But for me, it's that newer song, All My Life You Have Been Faithful. We've discussed what life throws at you, and you don't quite know what that is going to be. And to know that and to have that promise, I mean, I guess many of us could probably recite Psalm 23. We've heard it so many times at weddings and funerals and stuff. But that whole sense of, I'm dwelling, I'm not visiting. This is a choice I've made to dwell. And sometimes it's easy to fulfill that choice, and at other times, not so easy, you know. So.
On Sunday night at worship night, we were here, and we were thinking about trusting in God, and you know, and being there and saying, well, what are you going to do next in my life? And I had this picture, and I didn't share it at the time, but I'm going to share it with you. And it was just a picture of like the house of the Lord. It just looked in my mind like a wonderful house in the countryside, beautiful, calm. And the door opened and Jesus was there, as if you were going to go and sort of visit for Christmas. And he was absolutely delighted to see you. And he was like, come in. Yeah. Come in. I've got some wonderful things in store for you, but you need to come in through that threshold, through the door, and I am going to look after you and keep you. And you know, it wasn't just about popping in for a Christmas dinner. It was like, come in and I'm going to keep you safe. It wasn't sort of just for a little hour.
I mean, when you mentioned that to me earlier, I was reminded of a Sunday here, and there was this grandchild ran in, and I mean, the lady who she ran and hugged might even be here this morning, but that whole sense, there was just like the welcome of between this grandchild, you know, this is where and I'm just thinking, for me, that spoke to me, that's how God feels about you. Yes. That's how God. So if you take nothing else away, that's how God feels about you.
Those things that you just said that just really fit with something else that we said a while back when we met, which is, you know, in our lives, God's the one who initiates, and he likes that. You know, it's not for us to kind of conjure up I'm feeling holy or pure, or, you know, I must be a certain way before God. He initiates the relationship. What was it you said about your picture? God saying, come in. You know, it's him that does that. We belong to a God that doesn't grow tired. He doesn't grow tired of inviting us in, and we get that kind of fresh page to start with him every day. His mercies are new every morning.
And it's important to have that strength, isn't it? To have that I've used that bedrock word again, you know, because you don't know what you're going to face.
No, absolutely. So coming back to that every morning. So for us, and we've pretty much just come out now of a sort of, it was 7-year period of where just one thing after another were really very significantly difficult. And I don't know if you know the story either from reading it or watching it of the Hobbit, but there's a part of that where the hobbits and Gandalf they're absolutely under siege, and they're right on the edge of a cliff surrounded by trees, and the trees are on fire, and they climb the trees and they go further and further until there's just nowhere else that they can go. They're completely surrounded. And then the eagles come and carry them off. And there's a few verses in Isaiah chapter 40 that says this. It says, even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And I have no doubt that's what was in Tolkien's mind when he wrote that. And we have this little saying in our house when things have been just really difficult. We will say to each other, it's okay, the eagles will come. And they always have. They always have.
I love that.
So that's our, and it's we've got that printed out in our bedroom at home.
Yeah. One of the words I've had just in the last 24 hours thinking about today has been celebration. There is so much to celebrate. I think we spend a lot of time being in the doldrums a little bit. Actually, life is really hard. Let's bring our difficulties to God. But in Zephaniah chapter 3, you must know this verse. I don't know if you know that's where it came from. But it says that he will rejoice over you with singing. Like, God is celebrating you all the time. You may be feeling that life is hard. Even when your life is hard, God is singing over you all of his promises. And his promises are so important because, you know, when we take those on, like what Beth just said about soaring on wings like eagles, like understanding that God is a safe place for us because his word says the name of the Lord is a strong tower. You know, all of those promises are there to strengthen us because we've got things to do. You know, each one of us, no matter our age or stage, has a purpose in God. And I really do think that that is one of the words for all of us in here this morning, celebrating each other, but thinking about God as celebrating you, because we have got things that God is calling us to do, and we need to be empowered by his promises. We need to be in that place of abiding in his love, to hear those promises, to fuel us for what it is that we're going to do. What do you think about that, ladies?
I just think that, you know, today is really a wonderful opportunity for us to think, yeah, God is singing over us, and as women we don't often have the chance to really gather like this together in a big group with a shared vision of and you know, outcome of what we're all looking for in life, and a shared belief in God, and wanting to share that and raise each other up and just say, look, isn't this group of women absolutely incredible? Yes. And like, what amazing skills that you know we all have in different ways. So I think
it's interesting when you were talking about the eagles carrying. I mean, it's a long time since I've read The Hobbit. The eagles.
I thought you were going to say, no, it's a long time since I've ridden an eagle.
No.
Probably is.
No. About the eagle carrying him off. But it was making me think. Actually, we all need to be like those eagles. You know, you can be an eagle for me,
for other people. That's right.
You can,
absolutely.
You know, just
yes, the eagles look very different in different situations, but often they are.
Or we can be angels, whichever you like.
Yeah,
you know,
that person just encouraging you. That person.
Yeah. I mean, my story is I was very sick last winter, but I'm well now. But one of my daughters put together my pill chart, so I knew what I should be doing each day. And above it, in these empty boxes, after the second or third month of these things, it came printed out, and she'd put in the top, in these empty boxes, of her own volition, just some scriptures, because she knew it would bless me.
Yeah, sometimes it's little bits of kindness from strangers.
Yeah,
even not particularly Christian people can be massively
every day
helpful.
seek to bless someone.
Moves us exactly on to the most perfect question. Emma, what are we going to talk about now?
Are we encouraged by what we've heard today? Before we go to the final question, can we as a room just honour our beautiful panel and thank you for everything that you've shared? Shall we give them a round of applause?
Thank you.
And Kathryn for her inspiration.
Absolutely. What an encouraging conversation. Isn't it great to hear that other people perhaps have the same but different challenges to us, and that we're in a room of people that all share, we all walk this planet, and we all need to reassure each other of God's love and how treasured we are as his children, as his precious daughters. So, what has encouraged you on your walk? What would encourage you to keep going? How could you encourage somebody right now?
As we come back together,
Really lovely.
we've had a slightly shorter time. I hope you don't mind. You can continue your conversations afterwards. We're coming to the end of our LifeLab, actually. I can feel, though, the encouragement levels in the room getting higher. I want to thank you all for listening. I know we've done this before, but let's just say thank you to our panel again, to Beth and Lexi and Lorna and Emma, who has helped us very much. I want to thank you all for listening, and particularly our podcast listeners. And on behalf of us all, goodbye and God bless you.